Hi, this is Jenny, and today we're going to talk about something controversial, and that is homage watches, and more specifically we're going to look at the new Steinhart Ocean 139 GMT Ceramic, so let's get started. And on a quick note before we get started with the video, I just wanted to say thank you for being here and watching my videos. I have just reached 50,000 subscribers here on YouTube, so I decided as a thank you gift from me to you, I'm going to give away the Steinhart in this video. This is by no means sponsored or affiliated with Steinhart. I have paid for this watch with my own money, so make sure to watch until the end of this video to know how to enter the giveaway if you want to. So, homage watches tend to be a controversial topic, and I'll get to that in a minute. But first, let me try to define what an homage watch actually is. So, an homage watch is most often a watch that is using design or material cues to pay respect or tribute to another watch. That would mean that an homage watch does not necessarily have to be made by another brand. I mean, technically, the Tudor Black Bay 58 is paying tribute to the earlier models from Tudor, for example. On the other hand, we have brands which are completely unaffiliated that replicate very specific design cues of oftentimes very popular models to recreate a certain look, such as the Invicta Pro Diver emulating the Rolex Submariner, or the Steinhart Ocean 139 GMT resembling the GMT Pepsi from Rolex. And I did use the word replicate here for a reason, because with some homage watches there is a very fine line between paying homage to something and straight up just copying a watch but using your own logo. So how close do some homage watches come to the original? Where are the major differences, and in which cases are they pretty much alike? Is an homage watch a replace for the real deal, or something that deserves its spot in the watch box? To answer all these questions, I'm going to do a side-by-side using the latest Steinhart Ocean 139 ceramic and put it next to its paragon, the Rolex Pepsi. At the end, I also want to quickly touch on what you guys had to say about homage watches in general. Okay, so first let's look at the hard facts. With Steinhart, you get a case with a diameter of 39mm, a height of 13mm, and a lug-to-lug of 47mm. The overall shape of the Steinhart follows the lines and proportions of the Rolex Oyster case, though it slims it down at the tip of the lugs and the crown guards are closer together and a bit more pointy. The steel case is made from 316L steel, which is an alloy which is also used by Tudor, for example. The case itself has a water resistance of 300 meters. As the Pepsi measures 40mm in diameter, 12.9mm in height, and with a lug-to-lug of 48.1mm, you get a watch that is slightly larger in diameter, though not as thick as the Steinhart, making it look more elegant. It is made from 904L steel, which is more scratch resistant than the 316L used in the Steinhart, with a water resistance of 100 meters. When it comes to the dial, we get to the part where the Steinhart divides people into two groups, but we'll get to that in a minute. Both watches use a sapphire crystal with a magnifying lens at 3 o'clock for the date display, though the date on the Rolex looks a bit bigger. The dial is also black on both watches, but the Steinhart uses a matte black, whereas the Pepsi sports a shiny black surface. The hands on the Steinhart look almost exactly like the ones on the Pepsi, and so do the hour markers, the minute markers, as well as the lettering on the dial. The only difference here is obviously the logo and the fact that Steinhart used a red font for its model name instead of the white color we can see on the Pepsi. So with the naked eye and at first glance, the dials of both of these look pretty much the same. Only when given it a closer look, you can start to see little differences. Though the shapes are extremely similar, the proportions are a bit different on some details. For example, the hour hand on the Steinhart is a bit thinner towards the center, as is the seconds hand and the hour markers, especially at 6 and 9 o'clock, which appear to be a bit thinner. The biggest difference here lies only in the finishing of the parts. Though we had the GMT handgate with the little color specs on the Rolex, it is still miles ahead in terms of finishing compared to the Steinhart. Very few watches can compare to the Rolex standard, and taking a closer look onto the Steinhart really shows that. But then again, we are talking about a watch that costs a fraction of the Pepsi, so in that case I am rather impressed of how well finished the Steinhart is considering the price difference. When it comes to the most noticeable characteristic of the watch, the bezel, Steinhart took it a step further with this model as they finally put in a ceramic bezel instead of the aluminium one they used in previous ones. That way it is even more similar to the Pepsi. Rolex uses what they call Cerachrome, a special ceramic for their bezel inlays with platinized markings. Though it looks like the 24-hour markings are not platinized but painted on the Steinhart, we can see that they use the same font and the same layout. In terms of coloring, the typical red and blue look a bit brighter on the Steinhart. I guess it's because Steinhart used two separate parts of ceramic and put them together and colored them individually, whereas Rolex uses one solid piece of ceramic which they first color red and then add the blue on top of it, which you can see under an UV light lamp. Which also reveals another little difference here. The triangle on top of the Steinhart is filled with luminous material as opposed to the Pepsi. Attached to the case of both watches is a 5-link bracelet, which Rolex calls a Jubilee bracelet. Though the overall design is the same, Rolex polishes the 3 middle links, which makes the bracelet on the Rolex look a bit fancier than the all-brushed Steinhart bracelet. We can also see how Steinhart abstained from putting in one more full link on the lug, and they also gave the outer links a little bit more of a flat shape. When it comes down to the clasp, we can look at the biggest difference on the outside of both watches. Because where Rolex is using its Oyster Lock safety clasp with a 5mm easy link, Steinhart is using a clasp with just a safety latch on it. So we do not only have the big visual difference, but also a big difference in terms of convenience. Okay, so now that we have looked at the outside, let's take one more closer look at what's beating inside of both of these. Steinhart makes use of the automatic Sellita SW330 with an Elaboré standard and a 42-hour power reserve. Sellita classifies its calibers as either standard, Elaboré, premium, and chronometer depending on the degree of its finishing and the standard in itself. So Elaboré means that it runs with an accuracy varying between 7 to 20 seconds per day. Sellita itself is a Swiss manufacturer of movements and used to work for ETA up until the early 2000s, until the Swatch Group, which owns ETA, decided to no longer outsource parts of their work to Sellita. So in terms of quality, I would be so bold and say that they are pretty much head-to-head and both stand for reliable but mass-produced movements. Rolex uses its 3285 in-house caliber. It is COSC certified with an accuracy of ±2 seconds per day and a power reserve of 70 hours. This would make the movement inside the Rolex not only run for longer but also more accurate and reliable. Okay, so now we know the hard facts and we know how both of them compare and look side by side. So let's get back to our initial questions. How close does this homage come to the original? What's the major difference and where lie the biggest similarities? And more importantly, what are the implications of the results? Well, I think it's pretty obvious that this Steinhart in particular is really, really close to being an exact copy of the Pepsi. I do not see why we should dance around that fact. The shape of the case, the bezel, the bracelet, and even down to the small details like the hands and the lettering are pretty much the same. The only big difference here is the movement, the clasp, and some minor details like the coloring on the dial font and the slightly less purple-looking blue on the ceramic and, of course, the logo. So what can we make of that? Though Steinhart watches are one of the first to be mentioned when the topic of homage watches arises, I think this Steinhart model here is really pushing the limit in terms of being an homage watch. As many of you said in the comments on my post and from what I could read on forums, for example, homage watches are a great way to try on certain designs and see how you like it on your wrist before taking the plunge and committing to a higher price watch. I mean, like I've said before, the Steinhart costs only 640 euros, which is only 7% of the price of a Pepsi, which currently costs 9,000 euros, and not even consider the fact that the Pepsis are so highly sought after that they sell for more than 15,000 euros on the grey market right now. So in case you really love the classic bicolor bezel design in combination with the black dial, why not go for a watch for a fraction of the price? In terms of price and value, the Steinhart is definitely a great bang for the buck proposition. As it is generally more affordable and available, many agree that it could also be seen as a nice gateway watch to start out with before committing to more finer watches, so to say. On the other hand, if you really love the design of the original watch, going for the less expensive homage of your grail might not scratch that itch and you could be left with a watch you deep down do not really enjoy but still paid some good money for it that would have been better saved towards your actual grail. Furthermore, a valid critique on homage watches for many, you are left with a watch that exhibits no originality in terms of design, that is basically only one small step above a straight up replica, as they keep using their own logo on the dial but pretty much copy every other detail besides that. And so why would you support a company with your money that bases their success off of the ideas and concepts of others? All in all, I think it's difficult to throw all homage watches into one box, as I see a good amount of differences in between not only brands but also within models of the same brand, like Steinhart for example. Though I find this model in particular questionable, I really like what they do with others, such as the full-on pink 40mm mother of pearl Submariner on their homepage. At the end of the day, it might not even be a discussion worth having. People are always going to wear what they like, and that's exactly how it should be in my opinion. Whether or not you deem something worth it is up to you, and taste is as subjective as it can get. The only issue I have is with the notion that owning an homage watch is saying something about your love for mechanical watches, as some argue that your love for mechanical watches is more true for some reason because you're not spending an insane amount of money on it, but rather go for a similar, less expensive watch. To me, that is just a matter of preference and financial circumstance, and not really an indicator on how much love you have for mechanical watches. Okay, so now I want to throw the question back to you. What is your take on homage watches, and this Steinhart in particular? Is it a discussion worth having, or does it all come down to personal preference? I'm very excited to see what you have to say. And so if you made it up to this point in the video, I'm happy to announce the rules of the giveaway. So like I said in the beginning, I am giving away the Steinhart from this video. I bought this one with my own money, and this is in no way sponsored or affiliated with Steinhart. So all you have to do to enter the giveaway is be subscribed to my channel and leave a comment down below telling me what you think about homage watches. And I will announce the winner in my next video. It's going to be up next Saturday on the 23rd of May. So be sure to not miss out on that one. And that is it for today. Thank you so much for watching and spending some time with me. And I will see you in my next one. Bye.